Think of the many ways in which we have sought to be free. Technology has freed us. Industry has freed us. Science has freed us. Chemistry has freed us. Art has freed us. Education has freed us. Somehow we think drugs are freeing us. We supposedly have broken 1,000 tyrannies, and yet we may be referred to as restless man, intoxicated with a sense of freedom. And I particularly like to warn my American audiences about this, that freedom is not the same thing as autonomy. Freedom does not mean I am a law unto myself. Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, speaking to a hostile university audience that was jeering him, stopped in the middle and in rather non-regal language said this, and I quote, he said, "Shut up and grow up." He said, you can destroy freedom as much by abusing it as you can by taking it away. Did you hear me? You can destroy freedom as much by abusing it as you can destroy it by its retraction, by making it illegal to be free. That's precisely what man has done. Did you hear this? In an attempt to be reasonable, he has become irrational. In an attempt to deify himself, he has defaced himself. In an attempt to be free, he has made himself a slave. And like Alexander the Great, he has conquered the world around him, but has not yet conquered himself. D.L. Moody, the great American evangelist, had a great way of saying things. I was flying on a plane once when a stewardess who had majored in psychology, I was talking to her. I said, since you're a counselor, can I ask you a question? If I had a boy old enough to go to college, and he agreed that he would go to any one counselor I sent him to for 1 minute, and you had that privilege of being that counselor, in 1 minute, if you could tell him what is the most important thing in life, what would you tell him? She paused for a moment and said, that's hard, isn't it? I said, I suppose it is. But if he said he would listen to whatever you said in 1 minute, what would you say to him? She said, I would say to him, go to college and get a good education. I said, that's interesting, because there was an American evangelist by the name of D.L. Moody who did not have much education. And he once said, if you take a man who is stealing nuts and bolts from a railway track, and you want to change him, so you send him to college, at the end of his education, he will steal the whole railway track. Science today has given us improved means. Please listen. Science today has given us improved means in order to attain some of our damnable ends. That's not true of all of science. That's not true of all of the means, so do not take that as an extreme. But it is true that many of our technologies have only made us more sophisticated in our evil. And yet we run and run and run and play hide and seek, and we keep telling each other that somewhere around is this utopia, and we deny the reality, live in fantasy, and say someday we will find this peace that we want on earth. And you look around us, from violence in the football fields, to violence in aeroplanes, to violence in committee meetings, to violence on the battles of war. We are still struggling, denying reality, refusing to come to the grips with the fact that God has diagnosed the problem. We are too possessed by ourselves. The following illustration, when I wrote it out, I said, oh boy, if I say this, somebody is going to wonder what I'm saying. So I'm only going to state this humorously and sarcastically. Please listen. Nowhere is our escape from reality more visible than in the cosmetic industry across this world, which tries to hide so many things. Listen, the cosmetic industry has exploded into a multi-billion-dollar business, churning out products to make us look better, smell better, or feel younger, and a dozen other innocent forms of disfigurement. So creams are invented to smoothen the wrinkles and patch up the cracks. Colors and dyes are created to reverse the gray in our hair. Oils are massaged into our skin to make it feel softer. And advertisements with their blatant bunkum scream out at us that we can knock off 10 years of our apparent age if we eat, drink, sniff, or rub their product into our systems. then what the cosmetics cannot do, surgeons say they can. They stretch our skins to make us look more youthful, implant more hair to make us look more bushy-headed, graft on skin in plastic surgery to put the dimples in the right places, and narrow the nose and chin down to look like what we wished we did. But alas, the surgeon can transplant only so much. Finally, it is cancer or a heart attack that lands us in the coffin. So what do? We make a final outlandish effort to slap on enough cream and dip into the mortician's cosmetic bag to make that final attempt so that everyone then passes by in that ultimate death-denying compliment, he looks just like himself, doesn't he? If there is any time in his life he doesn't look like himself, that is the time. That's why he's there. Now, it's all right if it's merely makeup. They are really, to be quite honest with you, quite innocent forms of transfiguration or disfiguration, whatever it is. But when you take that from which of us is not guilty of it? There's something to that. But if we take that into the spiritual realm, please hear me now. The worst effect of sin is manifest not in war or pain or bodily defacement, but in the discrowned faculties, the unworthy loves, the low ideals, the brutalized and the enslaved spirit.